the enforcement of good behavior, enforcing kids to say please and say thank you and sit nice and sit straight and sit proper and be quiet. And because there's so many people who, when they become an adult and they're trying to heal or move through things and they can't make a decision and they're wondering why, ultimately it comes back to this. Kids will 100% of the time give up their authenticity in order to secure attachment. They believe without love and attachment, they will die. And so if you think about yourself as an adult, how many pieces of you feel are not accepted. And then you wonder why you have trouble being your authentic self or like showing up 100% you. It's this. Hello, you guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm so excited that you guys are here and choosing to listen. This week, I wanted to talk all about parenting. I want to talk about my parenting philosophy because I had a bunch of DMs and questions and people saying like, I want to hear more on this topic. So how this podcast is going to go, I'm going to run through, I made some notes and I just kind of felt like I was going to share about my perspective when it comes to parenting, how I have parented. I don't really believe in following any specific method. I don't read parenting books to come up with the way that I have decided to parent my kids. The best way that I could describe this to you is it's intuitive-led parenting. And I don't know if that's a term, and I don't know if there's anyone teaching on this, but truly just intuitively parenting based on what feels right for the unique needs of yourself, your family, and your own children. And when I was speaking about, basically on my stories, what I was talking about was the enforcement of good behavior, enforcing kids to say please and say thank you and sit nice and sit straight and sit proper and be quiet. And all of those rules that make up a good girl, like the good girl, bad boy, good boy, bad girl, whatever, like a whole idea, right? Because there's so many people who, when they become an adult and they're trying to heal or move through things and they can't make a decision and they're wondering why, and why they're a people pleaser and why they always care about everyone else's needs before their own, and why they feel like they need to behave a certain way and can't tap into their own authenticity and don't know how to be their authentic selves. They're confused on why. And ultimately it comes back to this. The enforcement of rules and behaviors that make a kid good or bad for the pleasing of a parent. And ultimately this came from, because I saw a video about attachment theory. It was Gabor Mate. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. And it was basically about how kids will 100% of the time give up their authenticity in order to secure attachment. And so what that basically means is children, they believe without love and attachment, they will die. They don't consciously think this. This is like a biological thing. So this is for all of us. If you are confused why you have a certain attachment style, why you get anxious, why you're avoidant, why maybe you are semi-secure, or with certain people you're avoidant or anxious or whatever, it all comes down to your childhood and how your attachment was with your primary caregiver. And so this video that I shared, this is what the rant came from, was talking about how basically children will give up their authenticity in order to secure any level of attachment. So that means that if them acting authentically, which in the moment could be huge emotions, having a meltdown, getting really upset about something, frustrated about something, having a tantrum, if that behavior is not okay, and if it's scolded or they're shown, whoa, this piece of me isn't safe here, this piece of me isn't accepted, they will let go of that piece. They'll separate themselves from that piece of themselves in order to maintain the attachment with their caregiver. And so if you think about yourself as an adult, how many pieces of you feel are not accepted. And then you wonder why you have trouble being your authentic self or like showing up 100% you. It's this. It was trained, and basically it was a learned behavior. And so this is where that conversation came from. And I was like, why do we care so much as parents about trying to enforce little kids to say please and thank you? Is it good to be polite? Is it a great mannerism to be polite and be charismatic and like, be likable? Yeah, it's definitely beneficial in life and in society. Yes. But to enforce please and thank you like it's the end of the world, on like a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. Like to me, I'm like, what? Who cares? Like it literally doesn't matter. As they get older, will it benefit them? And is it important for them to like learn basic social cues? Yeah. But like, do you need to enforce it in a way that's so militant? No, I really don't think it matters that much. Like and basically what I was talking about in my story was like, I don't care if my kids, I would rather it come from a genuine appreciation, which when they have capacity, 7+ years old, to start understanding what that even means, to have appreciation. Like at 2 and 3, they're so in their own brain of like me, 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 me. It's so hard for them to even understand that concept. So it's like you're trying to enforce a concept they're literally not, their brain is not ready for. And so is it important? Can you teach it? Yes. But this is where I was talking about the please and thank you thing. Um, and just my own opinions regarding parenting and stuff. And so, yeah, is it nice to get a please, a thank you, and I love you? Um, Different things from my kids? Of course. But like to have them only say it when they don't mean it, I'm like, I think there's value in teaching kids true appreciation and genuine, like, okay, for example, I'll give you this. So my oldest son he will not just say I love you. My youngest always says it. He always wants a hug, always wants a kiss, always wants to say I love you. This is like how we interact leaving, like that gives him a sense of secure attachment. Okay. So he needs all of that. My oldest does not. Like he doesn't need that like hug and kiss touch point all the time. He doesn't need an I love you all the time. Like if I say I love you and I say it again, he's like, you already said that. Why are you saying it? Like he can't understand because to him, it's just not needed. So for him, when he gives me an I love you or I love you so much or a hug, like it is so genuine. It's not forced. It's not a forced behavior for my own comfort to be like, I need you to hug and kiss me and tell you love me every time I leave the house because I need that from you. No, I go based on what my kids need, which for one is the hug, kiss, and I love you. The other one, oftentimes I'm like, do you want a hug? And he's like, no. And he doesn't want it. He'll come to me when he wants it. And so this kind of goes into my parenting, and what I was going to talk about is trusting and following your each individual child's needs. Every child is going to be different. Can you as a parent be adaptable to meet their needs based on what they're asking of you and what they're needing from you, not based on what you want them to behave like? And so ultimately, my core belief is that kids are sovereign. They are their own beings. They don't come here for you to own them and dominate them and have power over them. If anything, our kids are here as our greatest teachers, our greatest mirrors, and our greatest like catalyst to our own growth. If we're willing to see that they are so magical. Like they have so much wisdom and knowledge. What would the right word be for this? I think just like inherent wisdom and knowings that they're coming to earth with. Okay. So if we believe every single person is a soul, every baby is a soul, this soul that's in your child who's 2, 3, 5, however old, could have way more life experience than you. And I think where we get this wrong as parents is thinking like, I'm older, I'm bigger, I have dominion or dominance over you. And it's like, no, kids kids have so much. Okay, so how do I explain this? The way I see it is like, okay, in life, we have learned behaviors. We have learned behaviors from school, from our caregivers, from the opinions of others, right? Those are things that we're learning and making our opinion based on experiences, right? I believe children, before that really starts to happen, have wisdom and knowledge that they can offer us if we're willing to listen and ask the right questions. Is every child like this? No. But are some? Yes. And as a parent, it's up to you to ask the right questions and be willing to hear what they have to say and their own knowledge in order to show them also like they have value. They can contribute to this family. They're smart, they have intelligence, and that you're interested in their own thoughts, beliefs, and opinions. If you never think that because you just think I'm older and I know what's best and I'm the power person because I'm the parent, you lose that. And now they're just going to go and behave in whatever way they need to in order to get love and acceptance from you as the caregiver. So that was a little bit of a rant. Let me go to my notes here. Okay. Basically, I'm talking about intuitive led parenting, and then I parent based on a feeling, alignment, and flow, not a rule book or parenting structure. So here's my kind of like core parenting philosophy is that you're here as their guide, not as their owner. You don't need to have power or dominance over them. You need to listen to them and their needs first, as their way of being and doing may be different than yours. And also, they're often here to be our greatest teachers, which I already kind of said. So when it comes to parenting, honestly, like my kind of way that I've always done this is like I'm here as a guide, not a dictator. And I really believe in establishing critical thinking and establishing questions. Like I question, so okay, so let's say my kids say something to me, right? Like, "Mommy, I want this," or like, "What do you think I should do with this?" I will always pose them back with a question. So something that I think is really important in order to develop critical thinking skills, and this is something that you can apply in your business too. When someone comes and asks you a question, it's like, okay, well, what do you think would be best? Okay, well, how do you want to do that? Okay, well, if you were to decide how to do this, like, what way would you do it? What avenue would you take? How would you best answer that? Asking them, because it's enabling them to understand, like, you have your own ability to think. You can think yourself. You can trust your own thoughts. You can make your own decisions. Like, that is so critical, so critical. And obviously, yeah, do I offer suggestions? And like, sometimes I have to tell them what to do or give them, not give them all the options in the world. Yeah, we're parenting. We can't always be this way, but in a lot of times that is something that I do. And so another kind of avenue of this is like, I don't really believe in rules for my kids. I don't enforce them. I don't really believe in right or wrong per se. Okay. Take that with a grain of salt. But what I mean is for me to say, like, you have to do it this way and this is the way it is. And at this time you do this. And at this time it's nap time. And at this time you're eating. And at this, do you see how militant that is? Like, am I raising a military member or am I raising like a regular member of society? As adults, if we want flow and ease and we want to be able to, we're wondering why we're so rigid and so, and like so stressed and all these things. Cause I obviously work with a lot of adults who are going on their healing journey and trying to unlearn their masculine patterns and like wanting to become more feminine and wanting to become more in flow and ease. And like, why am I so rigid? And why can't I think for myself? And all these things. It's like, because you had parents like that. So if you're a parent like that and you're wanting to be different, just bring awareness to the fact that like this is likely how you were parented and now you're unconsciously parenting your kids in the same way. It's not needed. So what I'm saying, like, I don't do bedtime. I've never had a structure to my day that's essential. Like at this time we wake up and at this time we eat lunch and at this time we have snack time and at this time it's nap time and at this time it's feed time and at this time it's bedtime and at this time we have to be in the bath and like that is psychotic to me. That's not how I want to live my life. If that's how you want to live your life, that's totally fine. Choose that if that's you. But to me, like that, my whole body, my whole nervous system is like, hate it. I don't even like structure to my day to day. Like I like to wake up and be like, what do I feel like doing today? What does it feel like would make me feel like successful or like accomplished today if I got XYZ done? And I pick 1 to 3 things. And then in the day, I make sure I do that when it feels right by the end of the day. And then I feel tired and we go to bed when we feel tired. And I eat when I feel hungry. And do you get it? Where it's intuition led. So another example of this is like I've talked about this before with food, with the traditional school system, right? So you have to get up and you have to be somewhere at a certain time. So I get it. If you're living in a very 9 to 5 structure where it's very rigid on time, you may have no choice but to be that militant parent to like force your kids to be somewhere or do something by a certain time. I understand that may be your reality. And obviously, yes, like when we have to get somewhere on time, there's going to be some structure that's needed. Like if we had to be somewhere for 9 a.m., we had to be at the airport, we had to do something like, yeah, I'm going to have to get them up at a certain time. We're going to have to set an alarm clock. We're going to have to do things on a certain time. Of course, there's times for that. But when it comes to, again, intuitive led parenting, so keep falling back to that intuition piece. And that's kind of how I guide my whole life, is same thing with food. So when I used to be a nutrition coach, people needed to be told what to eat, needed to be told when to eat, needed to be told what time they were allowed to eat, when to stop eating. That's because they don't know how to listen to their internal body cues because it's been trained out of them. So, for example, you go to a traditional school system at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You now know you've been trained into when the bell rings at like 11:30 or 12, that's when you get to eat. And if you're not hungry at that time, you need to force yourself to eat because if not, you're not going to get to eat again until 3 o'clock. So you learn to override your internal body cues, hungry or not, in order to eat when you're allowed to eat. Does this make sense? And so it's like that little thing you may think isn't a big deal, but that just overrode your body's internal cues. And now you're operating on something outside of yourself telling you what you need and when you need it. Those little things added up over time, added up over when you can go to the bathroom, when you can't, what you can eat, when you can't. What your parents like, you can't have a snack before dinner. You're going to ruin your dinner, which that's never come out of my mouth ever. Like, and I also am like, oh, you want a cookie right now? Eat the cookie. You feel like eating cookies before dinner? I literally don't give a shit. Like, eat like whatever you feel like eating, no problem. Like when you're hungry, we'll feed you. Do we need like bigger meals sometimes? Yeah. Breakfast is usually one of them. Lunch is kind of like hit or miss. We might have lots of snacks during the day. And dinner is kind of like, okay, they probably need a meal, so we should feed them. But like they tell me when they're hungry. And then I ask them kind of what they want. I give them a couple options, then we choose what we're going to eat. I don't I just don't deal with rules. I don't like rules. When I was in soccer camp, okay, this is a big one because this is just who I am and you may be completely different than me. That's fine. But when I was in soccer camp and he told me what to do, my entire body was like, zoom, like frozen, closed off. I don't want to participate. I literally quit because I didn't like how he was being militant over top of me, telling me what I had to do and enforcing it on me. I did not like it. I was the same thing in school. If someone forces me to do something and I can feel it like erupting in my body, that it's like, don't exert power over me. I don't like the way this feels. It instantly makes me not want to do it. So if you're coming up to issues with your kids all the time where there's conflict, maybe it's because you're trying to exert power and they're not you. Who do you think you are, really? It's like to try to exert power over somebody and force them to do something because you want it to happen. Like any sovereign being, kids or not, little kids or not, especially if they have strong will, are going to be like, no, and push back because that's not how you treat that's not respectful. That's not how you respect other people. You don't treat people like that. So it's like, of course you're going to have conflict and your kids are going to push back because like, why are you treating me like that? That's not cool. And so same thing when it comes to like mealtime, food time, whatever time. It's like, I'm pretty open in that regard. I don't like being forced and told what to do. I don't like rigid schedules. I don't like to live my life that way. Therefore, me and my kids just don't live our lives that way. Um, so that's kind of that. And then when it comes to, yeah, so like, for example, like I kind of always let them sleep when they want to sleep, watch shows when they feel like watching shows. And let's just talk about screen time for a second. So when I say like sleep when they want to sleep, if they wanted to stay awake till 1 a.m. every night and they were never sleeping, like, yeah, I'm going to be like, you guys, it's bedtime. And typically at night, I still do be like, okay, it's bedtime because I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So like, you guys have to go to bed too. But with Maddox, my youngest, like he'll tell me like, let's go to bed. He knows when he's done. He knows when he's tired. And so he tells me he's tired and wants to go to bed. My older one is more of a night owl. He would prefer to stay up later, have alone time, and be able to like have one-on-one quality time with me. And this is something that when I'm not super tired, like I will do with him. And so what that looks like, and again, this is like intuitive led, this is unique to our situation for my kids and what they need. And this is where you need to be willing to intuitively listen to what your kids are needing too, because it can be a completely different situation. But what I've picked up from them is like, my youngest is really quick to fall asleep, wants to go to bed when he wants to go to bed, and like within 5 minutes could be sleeping. My older one wants to talk and like talk about life and look at the stars and be a philosopher at night and like could talk for an hour and do all the things. And like, as soon as it's bedtime, all of a sudden he needs to draw and he needs to do this and needs to do that. Like he has all these things he wants to do. So he's way more of a night owl versus my youngest one is like up ready to get at it first thing in the morning, where my older one, the one that likes to stay up late at night, doesn't want to like do much in the morning. Like if I try to force him out or do anything early, like I'm going to be met with resistance because that's not his natural state of wanting to do anything. He likes a slow morning, a chill morning, a quiet morning, creative time in the morning before he's ready to get going. Where, of course, this is where learning your kid's human design is helpful too. But he's a manifester, where my other one is like a generator, I think Gen. And he like wants to get going and he has all the ideas and he's like, oh my God, let's go to the park. It's like 6 a.m. He's like, let's go, let's do the things. Da, da, da. But then at night when he's tired and like needs to go to bed. And so I'm sharing this because, again, intuitive led, go with what your kids need. So can I always meet their needs entirely? No. Can I always make both of them happy? No. They're complete opposites. One wants to do one thing, one wants to do the other. They never agree on anything. And so it's constantly trying to compromise for what they need. My youngest honestly compromises way more than my older one because the older one is so stubborn and has the biggest meltdowns if we try to force him to do something he doesn't want to do. Where my younger one is more like adaptable and can have fun doing anything. And so he's pretty chill in that sense. So like he makes a lot of compromise. So when it comes to sleep as like I don't know, like I'll round out this answer and then we'll go into food, activity, whatever, the other things. For sleep, I always co-slept. I went based on their own schedule of what sleep was me. They're 6 and 7. I asked them to go in their own rooms. Most of them, they don't want to. There was a season where they did sleep in their own beds, but they're back in my bed now. And I'm like, they say too, like this book that I read, it's called Spirit Hacking. And what they say is there's like dark entities, fear entities that tried to inflict fear into children, specifically between 3 and 7. And so if you notice your kids are having a really hard time sleeping, or they're saying there's things in their room or things under their bed, or there's like something there, they say that this is true and accurate. And there's a reason for that. They're trying to basically, this is a little like woo woo, but what they say is like, it's like a fear based parasitic energy that wants to get into our children intentionally to make them live from a state of fear. When they're with you, that's why a lot of your kids up until 7 may want to sleep with you. Some may not be impacted by this. That's fine. But if you're noticing your kids are having really weird dreams, they're terrified, they're waking up screaming, they're waking up crying, you almost need to see it as like there is something trying to get at them at night. And in this book, Spirit Hacking, it talks about this, especially up until the age of 7, where their development starts to shift. They tried to basically leech onto them before then. So when I started putting Dax in his own bed, he would wake up, scream, crying like someone was murdering him. It was the most terrifying, blood-curdling screams I've ever heard in my life. He couldn't calm down, so whatever was happening at night, it would only happen in his bedroom when he was alone. Never, ever, ever has happened when he sleeps beside me. And so as this kept happening, and it happened like 3 times, I was like, okay, there's clearly a pattern here. And it was in a certain time frame, I feel like maybe when he was 5. So they've been in my bed ever since. When they're ready, because like I'm getting ready for some space, then they'll go in their own beds. But I'm like, with that key development up until 7, I'm kind of like, I know it's coming to an end soon, and then they can go sleep on their own. So again, I don't listen to anything. I don't care about other people's thoughts or opinions. Will I take in information sometimes and be like, does that resonate? Like with discernment, does that feel right? Does that feel like something that makes sense to me? Does it feel like truth? And then maybe I'll implement it with my own kids. Yeah. But I feel like I've very much just like gone with what feels right. And I would encourage you, do the same thing. Trust your maternal instincts. Trust that you know what's best for your kids. You don't need to read some book. The only time you're going to think that you need all these things outside of you, even me talking about this right now, is because there's a part of you who doesn't fully trust yourself. And when you tap into that and you're like, no, I actually do know what's best and I'm going to follow that regardless of what someone else might think about me or have an opinion about, or what my mother-in-law says, or what my sister says, or what my mom says, like, I'm just going to do what I feel is best for my kids. Like, life gets so much easier. For real. Parenting is so simple when you just follow what you feel guided to. When we talk about food, something that I did with my kids, so again, I don't believe on enforcing limitations and rules that don't allow them to understand why. So with my own kids, for example, if I was to say, and we see this again, this is like where the benefit of like my experience with food and nutrition and helping people is so valuable. What I saw a lot of was kids who were restricted in food, meaning their parents didn't allow them to have cookies in the house or junk food in the house or pop in the house or any sugar in the house, or they were like very strict with whole food eating. Nothing wrong with this. But what I saw was when the food was restricted, the second that the kids had freedom, they would overeat that food. So what it was a lot of was like, okay, college kids, for example, they finally have the freedom to eat whatever they want. All they're eating is junk because they finally don't have their parents telling them what they can and cannot have. Same thing happens when people try to do a diet, you're restricted. The minute that you can have whatever you want again, what do? You overeat it because it was restricted. So I don't really believe in restriction. I believe in like educating and helping them understand why I'm saying something. So an example of this, when they were younger, I let them overeat candy to the point that they puked. Was this intentional? No. But we were on a road trip and they kept wanting to eat candy and wanting to eat candy and wouldn't eat any real food. And I was like, okay, yeah, keep buying candy. Go ahead. Keep getting it. No problem. What happened? They both got so sick. They were throwing up. It was a terrible experience for both of them. And they've never done it again. So it's like letting your kids learn through experience. Like we all know when we overeat a bunch of junk food, we do not feel good. Do you think that just letting them in that one experience, see what it feels like to not feel good, was more like lasting than me having to say no all the time? Do you get what I'm saying? It's like in that one experience, they were able to learn what it feels like to not eat well, and how crappy their body feels. That's something that will last with them forever. So have I ever had to, like now, for example, in that time since, it's like if they want to eat a whole bunch of candy, for example, I can say to them like, "Are you sure you want to have more?" And they'll be like, I'm like, "Do you remember what you felt like that time you had all that candy before?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I did not like that. It did not feel good." And they're like, "I'm going to eat fruit instead." Like they're empowered in their choices and decisions because I'm not enforcing a rule upon them. They're choosing because of their own well-being and what they know will best serve them. So it's like, to me, that's such an easier way of parenting. I'm not trying to like come down hard with rules. It's like, do you remember what you felt like? Oh, yeah, I didn't like it. Right. And then they'll choose fruit or they'll choose another option or they'll choose real food. And do they still overeat candy sometimes and like love sugar? Yeah. What kid like here's the thing. Like I was the psycho parent at first. When I first had them, I was like, I'm gonna make everything organic and everything whole food, and they're never gonna have anything processed and blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as we got into anybody else, like around anybody else, they fed them whipped cream, for example, or they fed them ice cream, or they fed them sugar. And I was like, cool. So like, how am I going to enforce that everywhere we go for the rest of my life? Like, I was like, I'm not doing that. They can choose. And so even with candy, again, like there's certain candies they'll want to buy. And I'll just say like, just so you know that has demon dye. And when they've had really crazy meltdowns in behavior, it's typically because of like red dye 40 and blue dye and all this stuff. And so I'll say to them, like, do you remember how you were acting? Do you remember your meltdowns? Do you remember your complete tantrums? Do you remember how you were feeling? And they'll be like, oh yeah. And I'm like, demon dye, that has it. Do you want to feel like that? Yes or no? And they'll be like, no. They choose not to have it. I didn't have a tantrum. I didn't have them freaking out. I didn't have a fight. I just said, do you remember what it felt like? And they're like, yeah, I don't like it. Cool. So it's like it alleviates so much of what makes there be conflict in parenting because it's like they're making their own informed decisions. They're 6 and 7. They've been doing this since they were like 4 and 5. Do they still love candy and like sometimes they'll eat Skittles and sometimes they'll eat the stuff that has this junk in it? Yeah, but they never eat the whole bag. They never demolish it. They never overeat the stuff that's going to make them feel sick because they know the feeling. And so they'll go gravitate and grab the foods that actually make them feel good most of the time. Like, would they wake up and eat all the muffins and cookies if they're there? 100%. But like, they have their own internal compass of like when they've had enough. And I feel like that's so much more important than me like enforcing that's enough. on them. Does this make sense? Like, do I have to sometimes look at them and cut them off? Like, you're psycho. You're not just going to eat a whole bag of chips and nothing else. Yeah. But like most of the time, they're pretty aware and they make good choices, which I feel like is the best thing that you can do in parenting is like make your child feel empowered in their decisions, that they can trust themselves and that they know what's best for them. That's the best thing that you can do. Okay. What did I say I was going to talk about next? So that's like sleep, food. Let's talk about screens. Kids are growing up right now. There's TVs, there's computers, there's phones, there's going to be robots, there's going to be who knows what's in the future. But it is not possible to grow up in a world right now unless you want to go full Amish, which is totally fine too. I would 100% respect someone going in the bush and getting rid of all screens. Totally fine. But in normal, regular society, like that's just not an option. There's going to be screens around. And so rather than demonizing them and making them bad or wrong, I allow them to use their tablets. Do I wish they were tablet-free kids? Sometimes, yeah, but I feel like we've developed a really healthy relationship with it now. And so when they were little, and this is different, okay? So my kids are 6 and 7. If your kids are like 2, 3, whatever, you may need to put in limitations because they will literally get zonked in for hours if you don't take it away. That's totally different. For mine now, what I've kind of said, and again, this is age appropriate, but I've explained to them when they're on their shows for a long time, their necks, they're like this. And I'll say, you're getting nerd neck. And they'll be like, what's that? And I'm like, and I'll show them what it looks like. And I'm like, you're like hunching. Like, this isn't good for your body. Doesn't it hurt? And they'll be like, oh, shoot, it does. And they'll like start doing this. And so again, I'm just bringing awareness to like what's happening to their body when they sit on a show for a long time. Also, I tell them they're weird. I'm like, if you're on a show all the time, like you're going to be weird. I'm like, screen kids that only live on screens are weird. Do you want to be weird? Maybe you won't agree with that wording, but like that's the simplest way I've been able to do it for them to understand it. That like, no, it makes you weird. Like you're going to be a weirdo if you're constantly on a screen. Like you need to be in real life too. And so they choose that. And like, and now it's at a point where I'm like, I can kind of look at them and be like, and they're like, oh yeah, shoot, I've been like zonked, and they'll turn off their shows. So I think just like, again, not allowing it, but allowing it in ways and helping them to understand their usage. When they were younger, they loved to watch like weird, dark stuff on YouTube. I feel like there's just a phase that all kids go through where like fear is exciting to them. And so they watch some like pretty weird stuff. And then again, it was making them scared. Well, Maddox has no fear. That kid, I don't know. Nothing scares him, except floods. He's like really worried about floods. Anyways, but like Daxon gets like freaked out. And so he knows like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like how it makes me feel. And I don't like that it makes me scared. So I choose not to watch it. Again, I didn't have to like restrict it. It was just their own experiences taught them what feels good and what doesn't. And then they were able to choose what feels good and what doesn't. And that often means that they won't overdo it on their shows. So same thing with games or their Nintendo or Minecraft or whatever. They kind of like have their own parameters. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, you've kind of been on your show for a long time. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm going to go draw, or I want to go to the park, or I want to go do something else. So it's like just having the open dialogue of a conversation around it and helping them understand. If your child's heavily addicted to it, you may need to break that up and like help them move through withdrawing off of it. Cause it's like, you also can't just let it turn into an issue, if that makes sense. So it's like, obviously if your kids are having issues and problems with it, that's totally different. But I got to a place with my kids where it was like, okay, sometimes I was on my phone a lot. And I've noticed this where it's like, if I'm working and I have a bunch of stuff to do and I'm on my phone, they want to be on their iPad. And if I'm off my phone, they're off their iPads. So it's like, just look at your own behavior too. Like if you're always knocked out on your phone and you're scrolling and you're not really, mindlessly scrolling or mindlessly doing anything, it's no coincidence that your kids are also like zonked out on theirs. And so just having the self-awareness of like, oh shit, like if I want my kids off their iPad, I need to get off my phone and go do something and engage with them. And then also not feeling guilt when it's like, okay, if they're entertained by Minecraft right now, like the worlds Daxon has built is insane. Like that's a skill. That's a mindful skill that he is building using and engaging when he's building Minecraft, awesome. Like, and I'm, building a business on my phone. It's like there's going to be times where screens are really convenient. And so I'm not 100% against them. I think they can be used in, they're helpful sometimes. But again, just like mindfulness around it, because obviously if you can see that your kid's starting to really struggle and they would prefer to be on a screen than like be outside, or be on a screen instead of hang out with their friends, like you're dealing with something a little deeper that needs to be cut off. And like that's where, do I believe in intuitive parenting and guiding and not being a dictator? Yeah. But is there a time where you need to come in with like a little bit of firm force as a parent? Of course. And if I notice those behaviors that are going to lead to like addictive patterns later in life, like I'm going to cut it off and I'm going to get really involved because it's for their own well-being. And like hopefully I can explain it to them when big emotions move through. But like there's going to be times where you need to be a little bit more enforcing and not passive. So I think that's the biggest difference, is like so much right now with gentle parenting, people see as passive parenting. And like, yes, it can be, in the sense that like let's say, I don't know, your kid's punching you in the face and you're just letting them, and there's no conversation after or explanation or anything like that. No, I definitely believe in force. Like when my kids this is the only time that I've raged out parented where I was literally on the verge of like hurting them, was they hit each other. I don't even remember what happened. They were way younger and one of them really hurt the other one, to the point where like mama bear in me was ready to literally physically attack the one that hurt the other one. And I remember like raging, like grabbing, I think it might have been Daxton, which he usually doesn't piss me off at this level, like raging and grabbing him and like, ugh, like, when you're like erupted in rage as a parent, maybe some of you have never experienced this. I don't know, but like I have a wrath in me. And so it's like, I remember taking him and like I'm pretty sure I threw him in his bed, not like threw him, but it was like, I was mad. So I like forcefully put him down. But I remember sitting there and thinking like, oh, this is how you hit your kids. Cause I was fully ready to like sock him for socking the other one. And so I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but like in case you're a parent who's had these rage things, like nobody is perfect. No one is immune to like human emotion of feeling angry and frustrated and annoyed and pissed off at your own kids. And the way I explain it is like in those situations where they've made me really angry or really frustrated, after the big emotions have settled, I will explain it with words. I'll be like, I'm sorry that I got so like upset, but I was mad. Like I was pissed off. I was angry. I put words to what I was feeling. And it also shows them that like when they're feeling those emotions, I just kind of sit there and I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of anger moving out of you. Or like, that's a big move, like transmission of sadness. Like, I don't know. I just kind of sit through it with them, waiting till they're done. And then at the end, I'll be like, whew, okay, that was big. Like, do you feel better? Or like, what was it about? Or was it this? And like, I'll try to have a conversation to understand, and then always bridge the big emotion, whether it was me or them, with repair and like making sure that we're reconnecting after the fact. Because like ultimately think about your adult relationships. When you've had a big fight and both people go separate and they don't talk about it, it feels so disconnecting. Where it's like ultimately if someone got pissed and then the other person got pissed, and you can come back together and be like, "Oof, wow, okay, that wasn't great, but like I was feeling like this and you were feeling like this, and like how do we bridge that connection back together?" That feels so much better. And so I try to bring that into parenting. And I think ultimately it comes down to like, can you just respect your kids and treat them with how you would want to be treated? Like I think of my adult relationships and how I would want a situation handled. And that's often my go-to for how I handle it with my kids also. Just because they're kids, I don't treat them any different than like an adult situation. Does this make sense? And I feel like that's why naturally they're pretty respectful human beings. They're pretty kind human beings. They know how to stand up for themselves because they've watched me do that. And so much of what our kids, like you've probably heard this and it's cliche because we hear it all the time, but like it's caught, not taught. So it's not what you're trying to teach your kids that they're going to pick up on. They're going to catch how you live your life and how you behave and how you act to other human beings. And when they see how you act with other human beings, that's typically going to be how they end up treating and acting around other human beings. Does it make sense? And so it's like, I can see it when I've been forceful or tried to be like angry, because obviously I'm learning. This is my first time being a parent. There's been times where I've tried the like dominant, powerful, exerting force over my kids because they're not listening. And I'm like, I literally don't know what else to do. And so I've tried that method. And typically it results in them having the biggest meltdown of their life that it takes an extra 20 minutes anyway, and it was not worth it. So it's like they check me all the time when I try to like go with that route. I deal with like a 20-minute delay because of the emotions that it causes in them. And so an example would be like, okay, when I've done that, it's learned. So who ends up acting like that? Daxton does it to Maddox, or Maddox tries to do it to Daxton. And they're very like, woo, woo. And I'm like, dang, like, was that me or their dad? I don't know. Or was it grandpa? I don't know who they're learning it from. But it's like you can see in their behavior what they're witnessing. That's why they're acting like that. So it's like if you want your kid to be really like well behaved and well mannered, and it's just like, don't worry about teaching them that. Just be that. And they're going to pick it up because they're going to pick up what you do and see how you interact with other human beings. Um, okay, one other example of like allowing them to learn through experience. Two things. When they bit my nipple when I was breastfeeding, I suffocated them slightly. So all you do, this one people might think I'm crazy. So I don't know if I should be saying this on the internet or not. But what you do is like when he bit me, I just lightly pushed his face into my boob so he couldn't breathe for a second. And then he was kind of like, what the heck just happened? And then it happened again and I did it again. And so he associated like, oh, when I bite, I can't breathe. He never bit me again. It's not like I abused him and hurt him in any way. It was just like that little piece, okay? It really does work. So I'm just telling you, if you're a nursing mom, just shove their face into your boob for a second so that they're like startled, and hopefully it'll make them stop. I only had to do it twice and he learned real quick not to do that. Okay, the other thing, when they fell in the pool. So when we lived in California, we had pools at every house we lived in. Something I did was when they fell, I didn't grab them right away. I watched to see what they did, and I watched to see if they could get themselves out before I grabbed them. Partially because I wanted to see what they would do, because for me, I'm like, I'm right here. So to me, this is like safe for me to watch what's happening. And then obviously I'm going to grab them. But two, because I wanted them to experience being scared. Because if they didn't understand how, like, they would die if I was not there, right? They would have drowned. And so it's like, I wanted them to feel that feeling so that they understood how serious it was. Like, I didn't want them just falling in because like, it's so fun. And like, your parents just grab you. No, I wanted them to understand that like, this is freaking dangerous and like, you could die. And so both of them did. Both of them fell in the pool. I didn't grab them right away. And it never happened again because it scared them so much because I didn't just grab them right away. So things like that, where in parenting, it's like, is it hard as a parent in that moment? You obviously just want to grab and save your kid. But like those little experiences where like you can see something might happen and they have to learn and like have it happen themselves. They have to make the mistake and hurt themselves. Like, not like, obviously you want to protect your kids and obviously you don't want them to hurt or have unnecessary struggle, of course. But sometimes where it's like they're going to fall, they're going to hurt themselves, they're going to have scary things happen, and letting them move through that so that they know that they're for one capable of it, but for two, it teaches them such a valuable lesson in that one instance. So the same thing, them falling in the pool, them eating too much candy and throwing up. It's the same thing when the person drinks too much for their first time and pukes everywhere. Like, you learn real quick how crappy you feel the first time you get drunk and drink too much over like, you can't drink alcohol, you can't drink alcohol, you can't drink alcohol, you can't drink alcohol. Like, do you really want to like be like that? Or would you just explain it? And so an example with drugs or alcohol, like when they get older, I will parent in the exact same way that I've done with candy. It's like, yeah, it's there. Just so you know, like, I'll take them. My kids call people drug people because they see them and they're like, what's with those people? And I'm like, they're using drugs. They watch it. They're like, those people are scary. What's happening to them is scary. I don't like that feeling. When they're around me, it feels unsafe. So it's like, again, through experience, I'll be able to explain like, okay, when you drink too much, like, you're going to throw up and you're probably going to act stupid and like this can happen or that can happen. Like, I'll just explain the reality of it. And it's like, you choose. I'll be here to support you either way. Same thing when it comes to like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, this is so much easier to parent in this way because then You don't have to be fearful of any circumstance or situation. You just combat it as it shows up and you tell them the reality of it. Same thing that's gonna happen when they get old enough to, like, be interested in pornography. I'll show them the damage that it does to their brain. I'll show them all the research to back it up and why it's harmful and how disruptive it is to relationships and their own well-being. That's all I can do is, like, I guess it's, like, informed parenting too. Like, I will just inform them, that's all I can do, and, like, ultimately, they're gonna make their own choices and decisions. I can't try to force them into anything. All I can do is provide the information and hope that they make the best choice for them, you know? Does it make sense? Okay. Um, okay, when it comes to physical activity, because I think this is, again, something that, I see it a lot. There's a lot of overweight kids out there. This is just a reality, and it makes me really sad, for one, because I know what it's like to from the people I've worked with, the struggle of dealing with your body weight your whole life, the impact that that can have. And so I really have a heart for it because I just go, dang, like that really sucks. And that kids are not, because I'm obviously the activities my kids are in where I'll see it sometimes and I'm like, they can't pick themselves up. They can't swing from a bar. They can't run. These kids are 6 and 7 years old. That is our true nature to be able to do those things as kids. And the fact that there's already kids at that age that can't do it makes me so sad because it's like, who you are is who your kids are going to become, right? And so it's like, okay, if you're the parent who never moves, doesn't prioritize physical activity, doesn't eat well, doesn't respect themselves and their bodies, like your kids are just going to learn from those behaviors. And I understand sometimes there's situations where kids just won't eat certain foods. I don't enforce vegetables. I don't enforce meat. I don't enforce like eat your rice, broccoli, and chicken. Like, ew, I wouldn't want to eat that sometimes too. So like again, I'm not that parent. And if you are, that's fine. But I'm like, one of mine like loves eggs and avocado toast, for example. Loves it. He might eat it twice a day. The other one loves fruit. He'll eat an egg maybe twice a week. Like, again, who am I to know what's best for his body? He naturally is not inclined to eat meat. I never told him that it's like animals, whatever, but he's very spiritually attuned, okay? And by nature, he loves mostly fruit. He will mostly only eat fruit. He'll eat if I make him pancakes or like toast sometimes or an egg here and there. He might eat a chicken strip once in a while, loves a quesadilla, loves some pizza, whatever. He's basically a self proclaimed vegetarian. I allow him to be that. I don't need to enforce any of my eating habits or what I believe on him. I trust his body knows exactly what it needs and he thrives on fruit. Great. Like, I don't know his blood type, his digestion, his any of that stuff, but like maybe that's literally what he's meant to grow on and he's going to be his healthiest self because of it. If I try to enforce these other foods, like what if those foods are what cause cancer in his body? He doesn't need to know about that, but by listening to his own body, he knows like fruit serves me best. That's why I eat mostly fruit. My other one needs protein, loves a good solid meal with like all foods. He loves all foods. So he eats all foods. So I support him in what his body is telling him he needs. Again, intuitive led for the individual child. They're completely different. I make different meals for both of them most of the time because they eat different foods. To me, that's not like that big of an issue. I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, you guys eat different, so I make different." Just like my food is usually different than theirs. I just haven't made it a big issue. Like, I think sometimes as parents, like, we make it a big issue, but, like, my kids don't eat what I made for dinner, and it's like, maybe they don't want what you have made for dinner. Like, why is it even I understand you don't wanna have to make an extra thing. I get it. You're overworked, you're overburdened, whatever, but it's like, who cares? Like, stop making it an issue. It's like, yeah, our kids want different things than us. Cool. Amazing. Just just do that. Like, I don't know why we have to make everything such a big issue. Anyways, I would just say trusting, like, find what your kids enjoy. So, would I love my kids to be amazing athletes at every single sport? Yeah. For my ego, I would love it because I'm like, it would be great. Like, oh my God, look how good my kids are at everything. Like, look at, I'm such a good parent. Do you see how good of a parent I am? Because my kids are so good at everything. Which brings me to my other point, like performative parenting. I'm just making up terms, by the way. So don't hold me to any of these. Maybe they're real terms and I don't know. But performative parenting to me, and then I'll get into the physical activity part, is the parent who wants their kid to look so good at everything so that it can reflect on them, like it makes them a good person, because they're probably not that good of a person. So they're trying to be seen as a good person through how good their kid is. And so it's like you want your kid to be the best at all the sports and the best behaved and the best whatever and the best grades and whatever, because it's like you think it's a reflection of you and you think it makes you look good. And so it's like you're fully using your ego through your child to try to make them make you look good rather than just like letting them be who they are, which is a kid. Like, why are they performing to be the best at something at a young age? Like, why do they need to do that? I don't know. Unless they're naturally inclined to it and it comes as like a unique gift to them, then of course your job as a parent is to encourage that and foster it and create the space for it. But if you're just like trying to be seen as the best parent by having your kid in all the things to be like, look how good my kid is, like, ew, check yourself. That's so gross as a behavior. And in my experience, I've seen it from like a lot of dads, which to me is like clearly you don't feel enough in your life. And so you're trying to feel enough through your kids. And that's why you're like having this performative parenting thing. Or it's like, or I see this too, where it's like they try to act. Like, why are we acting with our kids? Why can we not just be like normal, regular human beings? Why are we acting? Like that part gives me the heebie-jeebies when like you can feel the inauthenticity in their behavior of like fake niceness or fake. You guys know what I'm talking about. You've seen it from other parents sometimes where like, I can't even explain it. Like, it's just like, when you see it and they're acting with their kids because other people are around. So it's like, that's not actually how they are. That's not actually how they engage with them. That's not who they are. They're literally performing because other people are around and listening and they're trying to be seen as the perfect parent. Do you know what I'm talking about? If you go to kids' sports, you will see this stuff where you're like, what the fuck was that? And it feels like icky because it's not authentic and real. Anyway, so it brings me back to my physical activity. Find the sports that your kids enjoy. Find the activities your kids enjoy. It's the same thing as an adult. If you hate lifting weights, stop trying to lift weights. Go find something that you enjoy. If you hate playing soccer, then don't play soccer. Go play baseball. If you hate Pilates, try yoga. If you hate yoga, try Pilates. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, as an adult, if I was to tell you like, okay, you want to lose weight and be healthy and move your body, find movement you enjoy. Very basic. Find a movement you enjoy. Do the same thing with your kids. How do you live your life? Like, ultimately what it comes down to is like, how do you live your life? Do that with your kids. If you're trying to find food that you enjoy, eat the food until you figure out what you enjoy. If you're trying to eat healthy and you hate a salad, but you love cooked vegetables, cook the vegetables. Like, you just need to find the thing that you enjoy. It's the same thing with kids when it comes to physical activity. I tried to put my kids in soccer. They hated the cold mornings. They didn't like rushing in the morning. Okay, great. I would love you to play soccer, but they don't want to play soccer. Cool. Cool. I'm going to take my needs of what I want for you out of it, and I'm going to just trust you. So then we tried boxing. I would love them to be like tough boys that like love boxing. They didn't really love it. They didn't love it. They might enjoy one-on-one, but they didn't like the like forcefulness of how the coach was kind of being. And so they loved one teacher, didn't love the other. The physical activity part was fine. It was the tonality of the coach that was really that they didn't enjoy. And so, but they did enjoy like boxing in general. So I might have to find like a private coach or someone that they really enjoy so that they can keep doing that. But they enjoy social things. So that's one. Then we've tried like different sports camps and they're like, okay, they like it. Like, I have them in PE. Certain sports they just don't find very fun. What they have found that they love, ninja. They're obsessed. They would go every day. And so again, I trust that. It's like, that's what they want to do right now. It's building their strength. We tried gymnastics. They got bored. I pulled them out. It's like, be willing to adjust and adapt. Kids are, especially if you know your kid's human design, like a Manny-gen child wants to do multiple different things. And so it's like they may get bored of something and want to do something else. Daxton, it's like where he's found his confidence and comfort. And so that's just what we're choosing to do because he really, really loves it. So with physical activity and you're like trying to get your kids to move, find an activity they enjoy. But naturally, as kids, human beings, like, we do enjoy movement. It's part of our nature. So if you don't love it, there's a reason. Like, you need to find something you enjoy. And like, is it going to feel hard if you're overweight or the kids are overweight? Yes. But it's like, you just need to keep encouraging them and bringing them and being mindful of that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, respect, it doesn't need to be taught because if I respect them and they see that, they're in turn going to be respectful towards me. Do they need awareness around listening? Yes. But I usually, so this is just an example because people might be like, but they need to listen. And I'm like, yes, totally. Um, but what I've done again is like, hopefully they do because I really believe children are inherently good. Their nature is inherently good. Their intentions are inherently good. And if they're not acting good, then it's like, okay, how can we explain it to them in a way that hopefully makes sense? And so an example I can give is recently, Jackson wasn't listening. I had said his name like 100 times. He wasn't freaking listening. We needed to get going, whatever. And this is something else, again, as a manifestor child, because I just read something about this. It was like when they're in the middle of something and they can't complete it, it's the most frustrating thing for them. And so they're going to react with like severe bouts of anger, which is exactly what happens for him. And so he was super pissed and upset, and then I had to deal with that. But ultimately, after the fact, so after he'd moved through the crying and moved through the emotions and like everything was handled, I tried to explain it to him like this. I was like, "Okay, do you know why I got frustrated earlier?" And he's like, "Well, not really listening." And I was like, "Listen, if you said, 'Mommy, mommy, 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 mommy,' and I was just like this, and you're really getting uppity, like you need me, and I'm not listening. I'm not acknowledging you." I was like, "How would that feel?" He was like, "Oh, not good, not good." And I was like, "Right. So would it be frustrating?" He's like, "Yes." I was like, "Would it make you sad? Would it hurt your feelings? Would it whatever?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay. So do you see why I did that with you like 7 times? You didn't listen. So by the end, I'm getting pissed off because you're not listening and I don't know what else to say or do when I've said your name and you don't respond." And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay. So can we respond? Like when you hear your name, even if you don't want to listen to what I'm saying, just give me a response." And he's like, "Okay." So it's like, does this make sense? So it's like, that's when you guys are asking me like how I parent, I'm like, that's a very real example of like, okay, not cool. We had to have a conversation about it after. And this is something else that I see is like sometimes your kids are in the big emotion and you're trying to explain to them, you literally can't. You can't get through. Wait till the emotion passes, wait till it's neutral, wait till the nervous system is calm. Then you can have a conversation about it to have repair, understanding, or explanation. But in the moment of the big emotion, all you can do is sit with them through the big emotion, regardless if it was warranted or not, or if you feel like it makes sense or not, or if you feel like they're deserving it or not. Like you just have to sit with them through it. All right. This is really long. An hour. I don't know if you guys are finding this helpful or not, hopefully. Okay. So, I mean, I already talked about this, how kids are sovereign beings, and so are you. And many of us as adults weren't raised this way. So we think we should enforce behavior rules over kids and exert power over them like we own them, but we don't. They're their own being with their own life path, and we're just here as their guides. Um, and so I really honestly do believe that. Like, is there a degree that we need to like educate them or teach them stuff or like help them with skills? Of course. But I really believe that like they're all here as their own sovereign human being, their own sovereign self with their own mission, vision, and purpose for their lives, just like we have as individuals. So do they. And we're just here to help guide it. So, like, when they show you that they're really interested in something, encourage it. When they show you that they really love something, encourage it. How can you support them in that? How can you push them toward that? How can you help them when they want to give up, teach them not to give up? It's like those little moments is more what you need to be as a parent than like, make sure you say please and thank you and be here and do this and no, no, no. And like, that's part of the reason I started the school that I'm starting is because I really believe it's like in the traditional school setting, so much of it is based on rigid telling them what to do, who to be, how to act, who to behave, what to behave, whatever. Where it's like you need them to be able to have the ability to think for themselves so that they can actually follow their true calling, their true vision, their true mission, their true purpose based on being who they were always meant to be. And the only way they can do that and guide toward that from a really young age is having a parent who supports them in their natural born interests and pursuits. So to me, that's your role as a parent is like, how can you be attuned to what they're showing you they're interested in? How can you be attuned to what they're saying they need, want, and desire, and then encouraging them toward that? An example recently, Dax keeps asking me for a camera. He wants to start a YouTube. And I'm like, okay, I've listened to him say it enough times and I'm like, okay, it seems like he's pretty serious about this. So it's like, I'm going to encourage that by doing it. So I've been recording for him. I'm like, God, I'm going to have to create this, but I'm like, I'm going to have him start to learn how to do this stuff. And through that, he's going to learn all these skills. Could he do this if I wasn't necessarily here and listening to him or telling him like, no, you can't be online, or no, it's bad, or no, it's whatever? I'm like, no, if this is what you really want to do, I'm going to support you in that. I'm happy to support you in that. And then let him learn through experience. And like, that's a skill that he's going to learn that's going to be really valuable. Right. And so again, just like trusting them and doing what they are showing you that they're interested in. The last thing that I will say on this is the medical stuff and then how I kind of navigate my two kids because they're very different with very different needs. So something that I've been doing recently that I found really helpful is carving out individual time for each of them to be their selves. So if you have multiple kids, it's very hard to see their true, authentic personality shine through when they're surrounded by other kids. What I've noticed about mine is they become a different version of themselves in big groups, in small groups with each other. My oldest one will typically always be himself in the family setting. The younger one sometimes will act more silly, more disruptive, more whatever. And it's all to try to get attention because the older one naturally draws it based on how he acts. Okay. This is something that I've observed. And this is where, again, being aware. So I've noticed this. And then when I take my younger son out with me, just me and him, he is not a disruptive kid. He doesn't act silly. He is actually really calm, really chill. And so it's shown me like he needs that solid one-on-one time so that I can see that side of him shine through. I don't get to see that side of him in a big group setting. And so if you think about kids in a classroom too, like the class clown or the most disruptive one, they're just using what they've been able to use at home to pull attention. That's all they're doing. And so it's like I've been able to see like, wait a second. And it frustrates me because I'm like, why are you acting like this? It's so weird. But it's like it pulls my attention. And even though it's not good attention, because most of the time it's pissing me off, it's like that's what it's a learned behavior as a sibling to the older one that typically is really high need, really high emotion, really high everything. That it's like he'll gravitate and grab my attention in a lot of situations, right? The younger one's like so chill. So it's like, I don't really notice like exactly that. So it's like, I don't really notice he has a need sometimes because he's not being highly emotional where the other one like needs me in that moment. So what has he learned to do? To be like silly or crazy or whatever, or be really needy to try to get attention. Where when I'm just with him, he's getting his attention need met and he didn't need to act like anything. So those qualities sometimes that our kids are showing, it's like those are not even really who they are. Those are just adapted behaviors that they've learned in order to get attention. And I'm already seeing it with my own kids and I'm an aware parent. I give them quality time. I give them presence and they still have developed this because I can't be present 100% of the time. I can't be 100% there I can't have my full attention on two kids at one time. It's like, it's going to be severed. And sometimes it's all going to him and sometimes it's all going to him. And so it's like, these are learned behaviors that they have adapted to in order to get their needs met. Totally normal, totally great thing that they know how to do because it allows them to survive. Right. So what I would encourage you to do though, if you have multiple kids is like take solo time. So important. Like take solo time with each of them. You will see a different part of their personality that you can't necessarily always see in a group setting. So I'm just going to tell you to do that. And then I will end with this, the medical part. This is how it triggered this whole conversation. I shared this thing about autism and how they're showing how so much of vaccines were related to it. And so what I would say with this is like, again, choose for yourself what seems like it makes the most sense and what feels best to you. Not because someone's bullying you into it, not because someone has a strong opinion, truly what feels best to you. Um, for me, I would never again really engage in the medical system with a brand new baby. Like it's just not really needed. Um, like I can't imagine like taking them to wellness visits and making sure that I just wouldn't do that. My first, I didn't know any better, but I knew. I knew in here. I could feel it. I knew everything about it felt wrong. I knew when I took him to get his first 2-month shots, I was like, my whole body was constricted. Everything felt wrong. Our eyes met and it was like he knew and I knew and we both knew, but I was so afraid to like say like, sorry, I'm not doing this. I wasn't fully in my own power yet. And so he got his shots and I thought I was just being like a sensitive new mom. Because they were gonna hurt him. And it was like, no, no, no. I knew beyond that. But he got his shots, whatever. I think Daxon may have got his up to a year. And then I stopped, or I might not have finished the 1 year ones, but I know for Maddox for sure, he was super delayed because at this point I was starting to get like more confident in my voice and my parenting and not caring what they were saying or like what I needed to do. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Um, and so I was pretty aware at that point, and Maddox for sure doesn't have all of his. He might have had like 2 sets. Baby 3, 4, whatever, which again, me and Dax were on a walk the other night and I asked him, I said, do you think you're going to have siblings? Like, do you think you're going to have a sister? Do you think you're going to have a brother? How old? Like, how old are you going to be? I was asking him all of this because he's super intuitive. Um, and he was saying like, I'm going to have a daughter. Then he thinks I'm going to have another son, which was like interesting. Um, anyways, with them, I'm not going to do anything. I don't think any of it's necessary. So yeah, that's all I really have to say on that. It's like, I just won't be engaging in it. And this is how far I've come in the last like 7 years where I'm like, no, literally that world it's not even a part of my world. It's not even a thought. It's not even a worry. It's not even literally anything. Like I literally don't care and won't be engaging in it at all. So there's my 1 hour long rant on like kind of parenting perspectives and how I've parented. I will just say like, I truly think if you are doing the work to connect to yourself, if you feel like you've developed a self-awareness, a self-assuredness within you, if you can trust yourself, then you can trust yourself on how to parent. You can see what your kids need. You can see what's best for them. You can see where they thrive and where they don't. And you need to be the one that's willing to make the necessary changes to support them in what areas they thrive in. That's something only you can do as the parent that like knows them in and out. Um, just remember like they are so sensitive and moldable. And so it's like your duty to be so gentle with the beliefs you impose on them, the thoughts you impose on them, your limited way of thinking. Like that is all going to bleed into who they become. And it's up to you to be really mindful of that. And so what I would say is less about worrying about how to parent and more worrying about who are you? Who are you? How do you live your life? What are your thoughts, beliefs, emotions? Do you have awareness and control over them for you? If you do, you're going to raise awesome kids. If you don't, you're going to have issues. They'll have issues. They'll have behavior issues. They'll have addiction. They'll have all these things. And ultimately, it's like that's our responsibility as parents to now reparent ourselves and become the best possible version of ourselves for them so that you can be an awesome, aware, present parent that can support them in their unique needs, which you should be able to see as their parent. So I will leave you with that. Mostly I'm like just winging it, which all of us are. It's our first time. There's certain things that I know I could do better. Like I get distracted on my phone or I get really bored trying to just like play with them. Like that's not fun to me. I'd rather be like doing something with them, right? Um, those are all things that will come up, I'm sure, throughout their lives. And like all you can do is be the best parent that you can based on everything you're learning and like becoming the best version of you. So yeah. Anywho, thanks for being here. Trust yourself, trust that you know what's best. And if you need a book, I haven't read this yet, but I've heard that my parenting theory is close to this when like in how I do parent. The Sovereign Child is apparently really good. And it teaches like how they're literally like no rules, complete freedom, all that stuff. So it's like if you want a book that talks about this theory, I think there's a theory in that. There's another one that it was built off of. Let me just quickly look at this. Something called like Taking Kids Seriously, a radical idea to raise kids without coercion. So I don't know if that's a book or like a study that was done, but pulling that in if you're wanting something. The Sovereign Child apparently is really good. I actually just downloaded it today when I was thinking about talking about this because I wanted to be able to listen to that and see if it does align fully with like what I believe and think. So keep you posted, but listen to that. I've been told that that's really similar to how I parent. Because I'm just chilling. Like I don't like rigidity. I don't like rules. I don't like being told what to do. Therefore, I apply that same principle to my kids. Yeah. Okay. Encourage them to be critical thinkers, ask them questions, trust them. They have so much wisdom, um, sometimes more than you. So trust them, ask their opinion, ask their thoughts. Let them know that they're capable, amazing human beings. And yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for listening. I will probably launch this one like ASAP. And if you guys have things that you want me to talk on specifically, obviously go ahead, ask, whatever. I'm happy. I'm an open book. I will literally talk about anything. So thank you for being here. See you in the next episode. Bye. Share it with someone if you think this could be helpful. Share it with someone who you know could benefit from this conversation. Bye.